So they phoned me. I had a chat with them, completely forgot all about it. And then I get this WhatsApp message from Antonia saying, "You're in the Daily Mail." And that was on the Sunday. It got picked up by the Times on the Monday. By Tuesday morning, I was on Women's Hour. And it absolutely was crazy. It was like, it was half term, February 2022. And I had like my 15 minutes of fame.
Hi, and welcome to the latest edition of But Is It Legal? It's me, Simon Marshall. I'm your host. I'm the founder of TBD Marketing and created this podcast to bring you some of the best voices of people across the sector I've had the opportunity to work with or I've met through LinkedIn. And in today's guest experience, we've had some time working with each other over the last couple of years. Natalie Sutherland, are you happy to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do for a living?
Yes, hi Simon, thank you so much for having me on. So I'm Natalie Sutherland. I'm a family law solicitor and partner at Burgess Me Family Law, and I deal with all aspects of family law, but I have a particular niche in surrogacy and fertility law. And I'm also the co-founder and co-host of the Infertility in the City podcast and live event series.
Amazing. Why don't we get into the details on that latter bit? Because I'm really interested. And I think all the audience will be as well. It's such a wonderful campaign and thing that you've built there as well. Tell us a bit about the journey into being a lawyer first. Though. How did you come to decide to kind of be a lawyer in the first place? What was it that motivated you?
Well, the funny thing is, I did law at A level and loved it,
Right.
and I got an A, and but for some reason I didn't want to do it at university. It wasn't like I was thinking, right, I'm going to be a lawyer. It was
Right.
more like I just really liked the sort of the academic side. So I went to university and did film studies. For me, it was just about getting out of my small Welsh town, getting to the big city. Education was my way out essentially, and so I went to university, but coming to the end of the 3 years I was like, what am I going to do with this now? And I wasn't really that interested in sort of, I just had no idea what I would do with it. And then I sort of went back to the idea of law and found out that there was a university close to my home in Aberystwyth, called that did a 2 year law degree for graduates. So I looked into that, and because it was an undergraduate degree I was able to still get a student loan. So I went back to university. So I did
Wow.
3 year BA honours, and then I did a 2 year LLB honours. And so that was great. So I had 2 years there, got my law degree, but as you can imagine, my finances took a bit of a hit. So I actually had to take a year out to be able to sort that out before I could then go to law school, which I went to in Cardiff. So I had that year out where I was working, then took a big loan out to go to law school, didn't have any kind of training contract, just went off my own back, and just really thought that, well, I'm going to do this. This is going to be successful. I've got no choice in it. So I did my year LPC and
Mm.
applied for so many training contracts during that year. And literally, it was the morning after the May ball that I got the letter to say, we're offering you a training contract, you start in 2 weeks. And I was like, which one was this again? Where is this? And it was a firm in Uxbridge, which I was like, where's Uxbridge again? And I was like, okay, it's at London Borough. That's good. I'm going to go to London. So I would have gone anywhere. I'd have gone anywhere for a training contract. And so yeah, and I was living with people actually in law school who had training contracts through the firm that would then pay for their LPC. And I don't know what it was, but some of them failed their exams and therefore were not able to take up that training contract offer.
Oh.
Yet I went through the whole year with no training contract offer, paid for it myself, and then got my training contract and started 2 weeks later. So it was really, amazing time, and I felt very, very lucky. But yeah, 2 weeks later, a trainee.
That flexibility you've got in that kind of time of life is amazing, isn't it? Just that, that roll with the punches kind of attitude that people have. It's one
Yeah.
that John Gregson had mentioned when I interviewed him a few weeks ago. So if you get a chance to watch that episode, he talks about that ability to just take on a client secondment, like about a weekend's notice, and just went for it
Yeah,
if
yeah,
they
yeah.
asked you to
Yeah.
as well. So Uxbridge, where next? Where did we go after that? You went to other firms?
So I did my 2 years there,
Yeah.
and then and I knew I wanted to do family law, but they didn't have a position. It's a high street practice, lovely firm. Still in contact with the people that I worked there with, but yeah, I knew I wanted to do family law. They'd offered me private client, but I didn't want to do that. So I sort of stuck to my guns. I thought, no, I need to find something that's family law. Went to Putney, which was to a legal aid practice. So I'd never done legal aid before. So that was a huge baptism of fire because I ended up having to go to court and actually do the advocacy. Hated it.
Okay.
And then I moved to a firm on the Strand, which was an Italian Anglo firm. So doing family law there. And but within 2 years of qualifying, I was at Levers and Melts Piggott, which was like my big break, and I loved it there. So yeah, I couldn't believe that a girl from a small town in Wales who didn't have any connections with the legal world, who first person in the family to go to university, was suddenly working for one of the top law firms in London in family law. I was just amazed.
It sounds like there's something in you there about that resolve, the kind of person who's going to back themselves to go and do the LPC, the kind of person who backs themselves to get a training contract. Is that fair to say? Would other people
I think
describe you
so,
that way?
but I only realised that now looking back. I
Mm.
certainly didn't think about it at the time, but I suppose there was always something in me that thought I'm going to succeed. I'm going to do well in my life, and yeah, I always had that drive for it anyway.
Hollywood's loss is Chancery Lane's gain, I suppose, right? So that's how it is. I just to think what you'd have achieved in the film sector had you gone down that route
Yeah.
instead. So there you go. That drive, then you've brought it to the work you've been doing on infertility in the city. Can you tell us a bit about what it is for those people who've yet to encounter it? I doubt there are very few of them nowadays, but let's give it
You're
let's
too
give it a try
kind.
anyway. So
Infertility in the city is, well, we call it a movement. So
yeah,
it started off with a coffee between me and Sumaya Wazani. She is, or well, she was a family lawyer, is now her own. She runs her own recruitment firm, and the two of us had met previously, but she'd written an article about the big firms offering egg freezing as a perk, and she'd written this article about the fact that it's not really enough. As women, we need a bit more than that. We need the culture change. So I'd met her once before. I wrote back to her and said, totally agree with this. Oh my God, I definitely think there needs to be um, this whole scale culture shift, because as women, we're just terrified of our biological clock and, carrying on with our careers, but also being a mum. So we got together, had a coffee in October 21, and said we've got to do something about this. So this was right off the back of the pandemic, and I don't know if you remember, but during lockdown there was a lot of talk in the legal community about mental health, and just people just started talking about it. So we're like, we need to talk about fertility. We need to talk about what women go through to try and have a baby, and then everything that flows after that. So we said, right, well, let's do an event, and Smaid had experience running events. So we set that up, and it was 2 months later we were doing it. So it was December 21, literally just before there was another lockdown, and it was a great success. So we had partners from different levels of law firm come and talk about their own experiences about twin pregnancy loss, about what else was there? Well, lots of different things. And then there was Emma Menzies on our panel, and she was the only one actually at that time who had not had her happy ending. And we had such a great response on social media afterwards. Emma came up to us and said, "We really need to keep this conversation going." She says, "How about a podcast?" And at first, I thought she had her own podcast and she wanted Samara and I to come on. But she was like, no, let's do a podcast together. So that was, so the beginning of 2022 was when we were thinking about the podcast, and it really took us like 9 months to actually get it out there, because then we were doing things like branding, photos, website, or we just wanted to do it properly. So we did all of that in the background, and also trying to find a producer. We had no idea how to record a podcast. This is all very, very new to us. In the meantime, in the July 22, we had another event, which was even better. It was just, we had lots more people there. We had Nikki Aiken MP speak as well. So that was fantastic. Again, another great response on social media. And then October 22 came and we launched the podcast, starting with our own 3 individual stories. And then we went on to do I think it was 8 episodes in that first season. And then we've had 4 seasons, and we're about to launch season 5.
Amazing. Tell me a bit about the Nikki Aitken kind of relationship as well. You've done some work with her. She's a
Yeah, so that
parliamentarian who was looking to change the law in that area. Is that right?
yeah, so that came about. It's just such a funny way because so around about the same time as Samir and I were talking, I'd had
Mm.
a partners meeting, and because of this article, a couple of my colleagues had come up to me and said, because I'd shared it to the firm, saying that they think they're going to have fertility issues because they've been diagnosed with PCOS. Um, so I was like, oh, and I was really chuffed actually that they felt they could come and tell me about that because that's really quite personal. And then in this partners meeting, I shared about my own miscarriage and how that had impacted me, and confidentially saying, and also, you know, we've got some women in our firm that may have these issues going forward. How can we make this a place to work that is, you know, that has this open culture? Because I remember when I was, so I didn't struggle to get pregnant the first time, my experiences with the miscarriage, but I still had that same fear of what happens with my career now, now that I'm pregnant. But anyway, so in this partners meeting, Pete had suggested that, well, why don't you be the women's officer? We'll have a women's officer that can speak specifically about these issues. And we already had a well-being officer through the pandemic, making sure everyone's okay at home. That was Kirsty. So because of my personal experience, I said, oh, absolutely, I'd love to do that. But it was like, you know, a couple of weeks later, and I was like, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, well, actually, fertility issues really isn't just a women's issue.
Right.
It affects everybody.
Yeah.
And but at the time, you know, to be fair to us, we only had young women as our junior lawyers, but that's not to say that we wouldn't have male junior lawyers, and we do now. So we changed it to fertility officer. And at that first event in the December, I told the audience about the fact that I was now the fertility officer. And what I wanted was for people to take that on board and maybe go back to their own firms and say, well, this is a really good idea. Why don't we have this as well? To try and create that change throughout the industry, starting with our first event. And Samaya and I wrote an article about it for BioNews. BioNews is a newsletter from Progress Educational Trust, which is a fertility charity that I'm a trustee of,
Yep.
and that got picked up by a Mail on Sunday journalist. So they phoned me. I had a chat with them, completely forgot all about it. And then I get this WhatsApp message from Antonia saying, you're in the Daily Mail. So on that Sunday, an article had been about UK's first fertility officer. I don't, you know, it was a completely sensational headline. Taken my photo from the website, and that was on the Sunday. It got picked up by the Times on the Monday. By Tuesday morning, I was on Women's Hour, and it absolutely was crazy. It was like, it was half term, February 2022, and I had like my 15 minutes of fame. But going on Women's Hour, I went on with Becky Kearns from Fertility Matters at Work, and it was listened to by Nikki Aiken. So
Right.
she reached out to both of us to say, I listened to your episode. I have a constituent who's got having these issues, and I want to do something about it. So can you come and talk to me? So we both went to chat with Nikki, and then she had decided to put forward this private members bill. So yeah, so we were helping her with that, and you know, we got mentioned in Parliament in the debates and things, but it didn't go further than that first or second reading. Um, but that was to be expected. Apparently, private members' bills don't often do well,
No.
but it is something that we have taken on. So I'm now part of a parliamentary fertility forum. It was going to be an APPG, but we're going to be doing something slightly different. And basically, we want to keep fertility in the workplace on the agenda. So the point being that if you're undergoing fertility treatment, there is no statutory employment protection for you to be able to go to your appointments paid without having to, you know, basically go, just like if you were pregnant with antenatal appointments, you can say to your employer, I have I have an antenatal appointment. This is when I'm going to be out, because it's the law. It's so they can't deny you to do that. You're entitled to that. You're entitled to those appointments. You're entitled to be paid. With fertility treatment, you're not. So a lot of women will might find that they don't want to disclose that they're having fertility treatments because that outs them as wanting a baby, and they're probably worried about, well, going on maternity leave anyway, and then what is the impact needing extra time off is going to have on their career. So so people lie about it. So they call in sick or they book holiday. They still go to these appointments because, of course, if it's necessary, it's really, really important to that employee. So they're going to be doing it. But what we want is for the law to protect everybody across the board who needs this, because it is such a big issue now. So that people don't have to worry about their line manager having that line manager lottery about whether or not they should can disclose, so that everybody feels comfortable being able to say, yeah, I've got to go to the fertility clinic, got my egg retrieval, or I got an embryo transfer, and can be completely open about it because those appointments are protected in law.
Okay, so two questions come from that. First one is, do you think that the new government, this is still relatively new, could make a material difference over the course of the next 6-9 months if it, got on with it and made some of the changes that you're kind of envisaged originally with Nikki, but actually maybe through the government's own legislative program? Do you think it could do some things there that would make a
Well,
difference?
they're talking about flexibility from day one. So
Right.
I would hope that they are at least open to the idea that actually this is an issue that needs tackling. If it's not going to be, because I believe there's going to be an employment bill, if it's not already tabled, then we would want to see if there's any sort of backbench amendments, so to try and get it in, even if they haven't thought about it. With the calling of the election, it kind of um, put the bar on what we were doing. So we were sort of hoping to get it all lined up, ready, and then we're hoping that election would be in November. We'd be able to lobby them to stick it in the manifestos. It all happened too quickly, so we weren't able to do that. So hopefully now we will keep an eye on what is in the employment bill, and then we are getting together to try and lobby all of our respective MPs and hopefully get some changes there. And we'll just have to wait and see.
You'd have to think that in the kind of the power of the unions and the changes that come from there in terms of kind of working practices as well, that we might get a greater backing than we would have done under the previous incumbents. But you just don't know. Anyway, listen, good luck with that element of it. But the thing I was going to ask you about is, as much as remains to be done, and there's clearly a lot that remains to be done, did you ever envisage that after 3 years you'd have achieved this much? I mean, the normalization of speaking about the things that you were just talking about there is something that I think if we rewound 3 years, it just wasn't the conversation that people were having. No. And we started today just talking about the various different elements you were just talking about there. I need to take time off to do this or to do that. And I think that is how normal it should be for people as well, right?
Yeah.
To talk about their journey. Are you proud of what you've achieved is what I'm asking.
I'm totally proud. I'm so proud. But, I wouldn't be in this space doing this work had it not been for my personal experience, and then becoming a partner in a law firm where I am leading junior lawyers who this is impacting. So there's a lot to be said for having personal experience, as much as it was devastating at the time. But I see that this has come out of it, and it makes me happy. It makes me really sort of proud that I've been able to change, because I mean it's coming up to like various anniversaries, and it's always really sad, but I think, well, look at what I'm doing now. It's going to help a lot of people, and sometimes you don't know. So I don't know who's listening. I don't. I obviously get lots of DMs and people. I got recognised at Wimbledon. Are you Natalie from Fertility in the City? I'm like, yes, I am. So that was amazing.
That's wonderful.
So and obviously I go to law events and people know who I am and what I've been doing, and a lot of them will come up to me and say, well, this has impacted me, but I can't really talk about it, but I'm really pleased that what you're doing, because it's having a really great impact. People are referencing our work in articles that they do, so I'm really proud, but never did I expect that to be that impact. It was just, I was doing what I could at the time, and all these various opportunities have flown from that, and I love doing it, so I keep on at it.
My observation as a marketing expert from the outside would be that you were always offered another opportunity and something else arose, and you never said no based on some self-limiting belief around, okay, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. And I do trace that back to what you were talking about earlier, being that small town Welsh girl with an ambition to kind of do whatever she wanted. And I think that may long may it continue. There is one other element though. Any words for Antonia and and Peter and their leadership of the firm and how they've worked in relation to this. It'd be really nice to hear what you've got to say about them.
Oh my God. I mean, I couldn't be doing any of this without them,
Right.
because it was Pete's suggestion of that women's officer that morphed into fertility officer that caught the attention of the journalist that then gave me that 15 minutes of fame. We've had various other things that have flown from that. So we've done the fertility accreditation training with Fertility Matters at Work. We're the first UK company to complete that. So that gives all of our staff training in how to deal with fertility issues for themselves, but also for colleagues. So that has been great for the firm. We've also improved things like our maternity and paternity policies, put in place for our own fertility policies and fertility benefits. So all of that has come from a nudge from me, but their decision making, basically, because it's their firm, and if they had not wanted to do it, it wouldn't have happened. So so it's very much part of the culture at Burgess Me, where we really do look after our people. So it was just, if you don't have that own experience yourself, you're not necessarily going to be thinking that something's missing. And when someone comes in and says we should be doing this, they haven't shut me down. They've said absolutely, help us do it. So so yeah, that's been amazing.
Yeah, my observation would be that we need to see a bit more of that in the legal sector as well. I think we've got passionate, highly intelligent people with personal experiences, and then they don't always get the backing of their leadership teams to then go and pursue those passions to kind of bring them to life as well. I think they do when they relate directly to work. That's
Mhm.
okay. But I think sometimes we need to do it when it has a broader kind of societal kind of effect, as it were, as well. And yeah, it's lovely to see. Has it? I mean, I assume that it keeps you busy in the day job as well, right? It does have
Yeah.
a kind of an element to it where you deal with family matters, right? So
Definitely. So family matters, but then specifically the fertility side. So it gives me a platform, it gives me a brand, and that makes me known as you know, the lawyer that does fertility work, surrogacy, and I also have this other hat on, where I can talk to people about their experiences, and I think it makes me more empathetic.
so what's the ambition? We've got series 5 coming up for the podcast.
Yeah.
What's the ambition for the campaign, maybe for the year ahead or so? Can you tell us a bit about that?
So yeah, so we need to regroup. We've got some pillars of the things that we want to tackle, like the work in the workplace and access to fertility treatment, fertility education. So all of that's going to be going on in the background, with us figuring out how we're going to try and change the law and make it better for everybody. With infertility in the city, we've got season 5 coming out. There'll be season 6 next year. There hopefully will be another event next year. I'll put it out there. I'm going to try and manifest it. I'd like to write a book. I'd like there to be an infertility in the city book. So I think that would be amazing to sort of collate all of those stories that we've been speaking about.
Any ideas for the book? What would it be? Would it be anecdotes and kind of
Yeah,
based
I
on
think,
people's
you know, talk
experiences or
because
advice, or
we've
what are you
been
thinking?
yeah, talking to lots of different women and men about their own personal experiences, and how it's impacted on their working life and their career in particular. So so yeah, so basically just following on from the podcast, but in written form. I think that would be amazing. It's not happening yet, but that was just me manifesting.
I think we all know it's going to happen, Natalie, right? We've got a sense of when you set your mind to something, it's just going to come off, right? So good luck with that. I mean, if I think about some stuff that's relevant to me as well, you're going to see like Timson's, you go in and there's the book on there on adoption and blended families and stuff as well. And I look at those personal passion projects for James
Mm.
Timson and others as well. And it's incredible. Like you can, once you've got the community and once you've got the authority, I think then doing that next level, doing the next thing, it's almost like you're compelled to do it, isn't it? You kind
Yeah,
of have
yeah,
to do it. Like your
yeah.
community requires it of you as well. So I look forward
I
to
have a
being at the book
duty.
launch. Yeah, but I don't know if I'm quite wording it the right way, but almost like yeah, we have moments of doubts about things like that, don't we? Do you have any doubt about it?
So funny you should say that, because when I was asked to go on Women's Hour, I was
Mm,
terrified.
mm.
So I've never done live radio before. It was with Emma Barnett, who I was
Who
terrified
is an
of.
incredible journalist, right?
Great, and you know, and totally on side with the message, but you know, did not give me an easy ride.
She didn't
In
even have to
fact,
do a
actually,
thorough examination, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's just the nature of her job.
Yeah, but I've not even listened back to it. I was just so terrified about it. But had I not done that, had I just been gone, oh no, I can't do that, I can't do that, that's too scary. I don't think any of this would have happened. I wouldn't have had obviously, well, Becky may have still done it, but I wouldn't have been involved in the Nikki Aiken campaign and all the things that have flown from that. So, so I think it's very important that when you get those opportunities, you just say yes, just do it. Don't worry about it. Just do it, and then just see what happens. Nothing bad can happen, really.
Feel the fear, do it anyway, right?
Yeah, basically.
I don't remember if we spoke at the time, but I think you do have to. Sometimes it's worth reaching out to somebody who's got experience in that area and ask for a little bit of advice. In your case, if you want to write a book about it, I think it's worth going and speaking to, I don't know, Katrina Wolfenden, who's a friend of mine, who's writing a book at the moment. And say, okay, tell me about the worst elements of writing a book and what problems am I going to avoid. I think you do have to do that, but equally, I think if the passion's there, it should be overriding enough, and you're going to do it anyway. Back to careers, just quickly, away from the physician elements, just wrapping up the last couple of questions. What's the hardest lesson you've learned as being a lawyer?
Probably to leave the work at the office. So I've had some real clients that really get to me actually. I did a posthumous conception case, and a young lad, 22, in a coma, and we were trying to get an order that his sperm could be extracted so that his parents could then try and create his child through surrogacy. And unfortunately, we weren't successful. These are not easy cases to run, but that got to me. That really got to me. I was dreaming about it. I cried a lot. I just felt so awful for them that their child had died. So so yeah, those types of cases are really tough, but also important to run, I think.
There's a lot of talk about the need for well-being support, I think, in relation to lawyers who are in an area like yours as
Mm,
well, in the legal sector. I mean, I just don't know if there's quite the same need in tax, but I think that is true of some of those areas where it moves you deeply. Whenever you talk to me about your subject matter, I always feel
mm,
very close to tears or moved at the very
yeah.
least as well. So yeah, it's good to hear you talk about that. Do we think the law is getting better at supporting lawyers when it comes to navigating kind of those cases and those client moments and well-being?
I think so. I think so. I think definitely, when I look back, so I kind of see that there's a real shift with COVID and lockdown because we are now at home a lot more, but it's also we understand that there's impact on that our work has on our physical health, mental health. We are talking about fertility more. We are talking about mental health more, and certainly I feel supported. So and talking talking to people in other firms where they're talking about things like mental health and they're putting in place the fertility officer or the mental health first aider. I don't think we had that 10 years ago. Certainly not when I was in my sort of junior days. It was very much just crack on with it. No one wants to hear about your problems. Um, and we're not like that anymore. Although there is a lot that, I mean, I think also it's a generational thing because a lot of the younger ones coming through kind of feel that that is their right, that this is, I want my boundaries and I want you to respect them. And that is not how we grew up as lawyers. So we, as the sort of the partners and the leaders, are having to really adapt to our leadership style because of this new generation of lawyers that are coming through who are just, they're just different and they need different things. And I think we all have to move with the times.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. I've got some thoughts on that. I'll come to you offline about that as well.
Okay, interesting.
Gen Z and fertility. I think there's something to be done there, isn't there? Okay, final question. And it's the obvious one, really. I suppose the book is the opportunity then maybe to bring things back and join that university career back with the real life career of movies. Can we see
The
infertility?
film of my
Can we
life,
see
yes.
well, or infertility in the city? Can we see a movie about
Oh my
infertility in
God,
the
no.
pipeline?
No, but if I ever wanted anyone to play me, it'd be Sandra Bullock.
Okay, so I'll get in touch with her agent, get that bit
Yeah.
sorted out. That's absolutely fine. We can send her the Emma Barnett audio as well. Just say, look, perfectly happy to be interviewed on these things. Natalie, thank you so much for. I know you're a very busy woman and you support incredible people doing amazing things. So thank you for spending half an hour with us today as well. on
My
this
pleasure.
episode. If you are listening to today's podcast, you've enjoyed it, and I hope you have, please can you give Natalie a follow, and then if you'd like to get involved with what she's talking about. I think it's made a material difference in the lives of men, women, others, all the way across the city and beyond as well over the last 3 or 4 years. I've enjoyed watching her journey from a kind of close up and then from mid distance as well, kind of both of those things. So do take a follow of her and get involved with what she's doing. And then if you like the podcast itself, today's episode, please share it with a friend. I'm sure it'll make a difference to them. And then give us a follow, give us a subscription as well. Come along for next week's edition. But in the meantime, thank you, Natalie, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.